From the time that they pronounced me dead was a good 45 minutes.
They cut my clothes and then they paddled my heart, 'cause my heart had stopped. And I could see people screaming and crying, but I didn't realise that was actually my physical body because I was somewhere else.
The only thing that I could feel, if you could imagine, absolute love and peace. There wasn't anything else to be felt.
I was greeted by people I'd known in the past.
I'm back home again.
Incredibly safe and felt at home.
Welcome to Round Trip Death, everybody, and a very warm welcome to our special guest today, Lynda Flagler. How are you, Lynda?
I'm great, thank you, Eric.
Good. You're up there in Canada. Tell us what's around you. Give us a little geography.
Well, I'm in a city called Cambridge, Ontario. There's like three cities, Cambridge, Kitchener, and Waterloo. They're almost like connected, kind of go from one street and then you're into the next town sort of thing. And I really like it. It's a beautiful area.
I know you're not right on one of the Great Lakes, but you're sort of surrounded by them, aren't you?
Yes, I've been here just 5 years. I moved up here to be close to my daughters. I have twin daughters. They live, one in Kitchener, one in Breslau, which is also very close to here. And I was from Peterborough, and that's connected directly to the Great Lakes.
Okay. Well, I've already kind of coerced you into telling us a little bit about yourself, but that's our first order of business each week. So tell us, who is Lynda?
Well, I have an honors degree from Trent University in Peterborough, Ontario. I went back to school after 10 years, and after finishing school, I worked for 2.5 years with developmentally delayed adults and Down syndrome and adults with autism. After that, I went to work with YWCA Crossroads Women's Shelter, working with abused women and children.
Well, you're one of those good people.
Thank you.
You know what I mean? There's some people that just make money in business all their career and others that just do good. So anyway, thank you for all you do. But let's jump into it. You've had a couple of near-death experiences, and they're different from each other, and they were spread out of ways. Let's talk about the first one first. And this one is not a really traditional near-death experience, shall we say. The second one is a little bit more down those lines, but tell us about the car wreck a few years back.
Well, what happened is I worked a lot of midnights at the shelter because I was what is called relief staff. So when you're hired there, you start at the bottom, and then you work as relief, then you go up to part-time and full-time as a counselor. I was relieved, so I get all the midnights. And so I was coming home in the morning, and my car hit black ice. And when it did, I lost total control of my car. It spun in circles one direction, then it spun in circles the other direction. And it just kept spinning. No matter what I did, I could not get it out of this spin. I thought, this is it. I'm going to get hit. Somebody is going to hit me. And I thought, if they do, that's it. I'm dead. And so I said a prayer to God. I said, if I'm going to die, please don't let it be too painful. And immediately after I said that prayer, my car filled up with white light, to the point I could no longer see the road. I couldn't see out the windows. I couldn't see my rearview mirror. It was like it was gone. All I could see was white light around me. It was like I was sitting in a real white cloud. And at that moment, I heard a voice say, "Stop steering." And without even thinking why I would hear a voice, I said, but I can't. I got to get the car off the road. Somebody's going to hit me. So I was like steering for a second, even though I could not see the road. And then I realized I can't see. And then I heard the voice even louder again say, "Stop steering." And I said in my mind, okay, this is it. Took my hands off the wheel completely, my foot off the gas, and I think it was on the brake too. I'm not sure. I was so panicked. Then the car slowed itself down and backed itself across the highway into a shallow ditch. I came out without a scratch, so did the car. A family in a van driving by saw me in the ditch. They picked me up and took me home. But the weird part about this, if this isn't weird enough, the night before that I always had a couple hours nap before I went in to work. And when I went to go upstairs to bed, I looked out the front door and I could see that it was starting to snow out. And I thought, oh no, another slippery winter drive. And I thought I might be okay because it's just starting to snow. So I went up to bed, but I was tossing and turning, going, what's it going to be like in the morning? I know it's okay now. What's it going to be like in the morning? What's it going to be like? And all of a sudden, I saw myself in a vision in my car spinning. And I'm like, what is going on? And a voice said, you're having a car accident. I've never had a vision before, a psychic of any kind. It scared me because I could feel the fear of that actually happening. And I kind of pulled myself out of it. And I'm like, what was that? I went running downstairs. I wanted to phone into work and say, I can't come in. Well, what could I say? I had a vision that if I drive to work, I'm going to have a car accident. That's really not a good excuse for calling in on your shift at 10 o'clock at night when you're supposed to start at 11. So I went to work, hardly believing what had happened, and I got there fine. It was slippery, but on the way home, that's when my car had black ice.
All right, I want to play devil's advocate for a second because this is the kind of thing that I usually don't call a near-death experience. I call it just sort of a brush with death, right? But there's some differences here, and that is the bright light. Can you explain to me the bright light? Was this headlights from a semi-truck, or was this a light from something else?
It was a day like headlights still flash in your eyes. I know that experience because I drove a lot at night. I know what that feels like. This was completely surrounded by white light, and I could not see my rear view mirror. And I could not look out and see the road. It was not headlights, Eric, I assure you.
Okay, you've had a few years to think about this. Can you explain the white light? Do you have any thoughts as to what it was or represented?
Well, I would say I very much believe in the power of prayer. And my whole life, I've had great faith in God, and I believe I called out, and I feel like it could have been an angel, a divine presence. I can't fully explain it myself, but I know, say you say it could have been headlights, right? Well, then explain to me that voice that said stop steering twice.
Well, that's my next question because I'm just asking your opinion. Who do you think that voice was?
Well, I would say the voice was like either a spirit guide or a guardian angel.
Well, those would be my guesses too. I just was hoping that maybe you had come up with something. One or the other.
Yeah.
Those are pretty closely related anyway, aren't they?
They are, yeah. I've seen both.
And then how your car did what it did to keep you safe. Would you attribute that to this guardian angel as well?
I would because it was the way. See, not only did it stop, took itself out of the spin. The ditch could have went close the ditch on that where the side I was on. It was closer, like it backed itself across the whole highway,
Okay.
which was farther than the other side was closer.
I'm going to give our audience what I call a woo-woo alert because there's sometimes that we're very serious about everything and very calm and still, and there's other times where people would say what you're talking about is kind of woo-woo, whatever woo-woo means. We're jumping into that now. So here's the woo-woo alert, everybody. Now, when people have had a near-death experience, they often come back and have some kind of a spiritual gift, whether that is being spiritually connected with angels or people who have died, or talents like playing the piano. Or I had someone on the show that after her NDE, she could understand animals' thoughts, things like that. So tell me what happened to you shortly after this experience.
Well, within 3 days after that happened, at night I started seeing people standing beside my bed. At first, I thought it was my imagination, and the reason why I did was because they all appeared to be from different centuries, like period clothing of centuries going back to, I'd say, the 12th century approximately. I thought it was, well, why is your imagination doing that? I didn't think at first it was dead people. And I would lay in bed and go, what did you watch on TV? And I'm like, Friends, Fraser, comedies, because that's what I like to watch. Until one night I was by myself in the house. And they weren't talking to me, they were just staying there looking at me. And then one night I was by myself. My boyfriend was on midnights in the factory where he worked. My daughters were on a sleepover. They were 10 years old at the time. And I was laying up in bed thinking about what I had to do the next day, if the shelter was going to call me, I got to do laundry, I got to do groceries, just general stuff. And all of a sudden I heard what sounded, and I was laying there with my eyes closed, all of a sudden I heard what sounded like a real old man's voice go, I beg your pardon. And I thought, oh my God, there's an old man in my bed. How did he get in here? And I was scared to open my eyes for a couple of minutes. But then I thought, I got to deal with this man in my bed. I opened my eyes and there was nobody there. And that's when I realized that was a dead person, and so were the other people that for several weeks were standing beside my bed every night. So to make a long story short, after that, I became a medium with the ability, because once I heard that one person, I started to be able to connect. Like, I'm leaving a lot out here, but people started calling me for readings, and I realized I then had the ability to communicate with people that have died.
Okay.
Certainly not expected.
Was that really scary at first to see these people?
Well, just that particular night when I was by myself, I literally ran downstairs, lit up a cigarette because I smoked at the time, I don't anymore, plugged in my tea kettle and waited for all the dead people to come out of the walls because I thought that was what was going to happen. And at that point, I heard a thought to me, which I now know was a spirit guide, say, look, Lynda, you can choose to be afraid of this or you can develop a sense of humor. So that was like a ray of hope. I said, well, I can do that. So I stood in my kitchen all by myself and said, look, I don't know what all you dead people do for sleep, but I've got to get some now. I'm going to bed. Leave me alone. So I marched upstairs, went to bed. They left me alone for about 3 or 4 days, and then they all started coming back. And I've been seeing them and hearing them ever since.
You know what this reminds me of? Have you seen the TV show called Ghosts?
I love that. Jennifer Love Hewitt. I used to watch it all the time. And the show Medium.
No, there's a new show out called Ghosts. It's more of a
Oh, the
comedy.
new one goes. Yeah, I know the meat one. Yeah.
Yeah, it's about a couple that have this old house, and it came with ghosts. And the woman had an accident, if I remember right, bonked her head or something, and sees these ghosts all the time now that nobody else can see, and she can hear them. And that's what I'm picturing. And I don't mean that in any kind of a making fun of way, but that's what I'm picturing. Is it anything like that for you?
Oh, it is, Eric, because I never know who I'm going to see. Like, I can be sound asleep in my bed, like, I mean, asleep. And I'll hear Lynda, Lynda, Lynda. I'm so used to it now. I go, what? And I'll roll over and be somebody standing beside my bed or sitting on it. And they'll say what they want to say. And then I'll say, okay, I'll tell them. And then they go.
Are they always friendly ghosts or spirits?
Mostly, some aren't. The ones that seem to be, I would say, more angry is murder victims because they have lost their lives. Somebody just took their life. And after, this is a whole other story too, so we could talk for hours, but I became a licensed private investigator because I did start to see spirits of murder victims wanting my help.
So they had you help solve the crime?
Well, in some cases, it's hard for the police to recognize it, but when I do call in, I've been right a great deal of times. It's something over the years I kind of pull back a little from because the images are very almost traumatic to see because I see what's happening with that person, how their death occurred, why, and it's especially difficult in the case of children.
Okay, I'm not sure what to do with that, but we're going to move on. I want to fast forward to your more recent, more traditional near death experience. Would you tell us what led up to that?
I was in a relationship that became very difficult and abusive, and the doctor put me on a sedative called clonazepam. I was supposed to take 1 or 2 a day. I was taking like 6 or 7. The drugstore was closed at Christmas time. I went to get my prescription, and it was closed for 2 weeks. So I ended up withdrawing off that drug, which I didn't know how strong it actually was. And after 3 days, I started having like seizures, and I was feeling really ill. I went upstairs to bed. I was laying on my right side. I went to roll over on my left side, and I didn't make it that far. I left my body and started floating up. And the first thing I saw was my guides sitting in a church praying for me. And then I floated higher, and then I saw Mother Theresa. And I'm not Catholic, but that's who I saw. And she said, "I'm praying for you." Then I floated higher. Then I saw Edgar Casey, who was a prominent psychic in like the 1940s, who did over 15,000 medical readings for people while in a deep state of sleep. And he could never be proven wrong by doctors, although they tried. I said to him, "What are you doing?" He said, "I'm talking to you." And he just sat and smiled at me. Then I floated higher. Then I saw St. Peter. He was standing, it looked like a speaker's podium. And he said, "We're going to put back everything the way it was." I floated a little bit higher past him, and I saw what looked like a throne. And somehow I felt it to be the throne of God. And at that moment, I heard a voice say to me, "You have been chosen to sit at the right hand of God." And for some reason unknown to me, I said, "I can't sit there. That's Jesus' place." And as soon as I said that, I felt myself falling and falling and falling. I felt like from a very high distance. And I started to get scared what I was going to hit, and thunk, and back in my bed. But then after that, I don't think I fully realized what had happened, but after that I started flying out of my body. And for the next 2-3 hours, I kept flying out of my body, leaving my body, and going to different places all over the world. I forgot most of them now, but the only one I really remember was Egypt. And when I ended up in Egypt, I ended up in a pyramid. There was like an outer wall and an inner wall. I could see myself traveling down in between the two walls. And I started to feel claustrophobic, so I said, "I want out of here." As soon as I said that, I was in the main part of the pyramid. It was big and open. And at that point, I saw Cleopatra. And I saw her as clear as I'm seeing you now, perhaps clearer. And she spoke to me, but I don't remember what message she gave me. Something about eternal life. And then I was back after that, and just the result, like you said, the after effects of that was just my abilities as a medium got even a lot stronger. And I began to physically feel it if a spirit would touch me, grab me, or poke me, as if that person was alive.
So you had not felt the spirits previously, but you do now sometimes.
Not touch me. Before previously, I could feel strongly how a person died. I can honestly say I know what it's like to be shot, stabbed in the back, and drowned. And the sensations, people, you hear mediums talk and they'll say, "I feel pressure in my chest," or whatever. It's like, "Oh, no. I can tell you what it really feels like." And I asked my guys to take that away because I felt it too strongly. So for a number of years, that kind of stopped, where I don't feel that anymore the way I did. You can tell me how you died, but don't make me feel that.
That's great that you have some control over it. And frankly, I'm glad I don't have your gift. It doesn't sound fun.
You know what, dear? A lot of people say that to me. But
Yeah.
again, going back to that time in the kitchen, my guys said you can develop a sense of humor. That's what I do. I laugh and I joke about what I do. I'm being pretty serious now, I know. But if you speak to me, and when I do a reading for people and to connect with their loved ones, I like to make them laugh so that they know they don't have to be afraid of death.
Okay, I want to go back and ask some questions. This drug interaction, I wasn't clear. Did you have some kind of an interaction or a withdrawal or an accidental overdose? Exactly what was it?
It was more of an overdose, taking too much and then cutting off of it. I mean, they told me later at the hospital that I could have died. Yeah, I did. Yeah, because even though it's a tiny pill, it's very, very, very strong. It does a lot of damage if you misuse it.
Okay, I have to play devil's advocate again just for a second. I'm not trying to give you a hard time, I promise, Lynda. But there's got to be some people that say, oh, it was a drug overdose, and so you saw all these things. What do you say to that?
The thing is, I had been off the drug for several days. It had almost been out of my system by that point. I was not hallucinating or anything like that, and I had been off of it for several days before that happened.
Okay. I also find really interesting the fact that you saw these Catholic figures, Mother Teresa, Saint Peter, a throne, which I guess would be kind of a Christian thing. Then you saw Cleopatra. How, I don't get it.
Well, I can tell you, dear, I don't get it either.
Okay.
And like even in initially when I saw those people standing beside my bed, why? I can ask myself this question as much as you. Why was I seeing people from different time periods in the beginning instead of people that died, say, 10 years ago? Why was I seeing people going back to the 8th, 9th, 10th century? I can tell you why, but that's a whole other show. Because I don't know why, but at the time, I didn't. It's a very good question. And at that time, why did I see Cleopatra? Well, again, I can answer that, but how many times do you want me to be on your show?
I just want a 30-second answer, that's all.
Well, I believe, I never used to, but I believe wholeheartedly now in reincarnation. And I believe that was a past life experience.
Okay. How did you know who these people were? Did they introduce themselves or did you just for some reason know them?
The people from the different time periods, I didn't know. The people that come now, mostly they'll tell me their names.
Well, I was asking about during the NDE when you saw St. Peter, Cleopatra, Mother Teresa.
Because he said, and Edgar Casey, I recognized him because, of course, I've seen pictures of him. But one night, after my first near-death experience with the car, I woke up to see him, a man walking through my bedroom, walking in front of my bed, wearing a three-piece suit. I only saw him from kind of the back and the side, the spirit. And I said, "Excuse me." I said, "Who are you?" And he said, "I'm Edgar Casey, dear." And he just proceeded to walk through the door and out.
But St. Peter, how did you know that was him?
I don't know, Eric. I don't have an answer for that. People in Christianity tend to believe there is a St. Peter who will stand at the gates of heaven and kind of direct traffic, right? And I don't have an explanation as to why. It's certainly something I didn't create in my mind. Is there he was standing at what looked like some sort of a podium. And he said, "We are going to put things back the way they were."
That's okay. I'm just asking all the hard questions today, that's all. The other thing that I found interesting about that is it seems that a lot of people during their NDE see people or angels that they are familiar with. Christians often see Jesus or somebody else through that religion. Buddhists sometimes see Buddha, etc., etc. And you're not Catholic yet you saw Catholic figures. And that's unusual. I think it's interesting.
It's interesting. So, like I've read about near-death experiences and that people do see Jesus and angels. I didn't at that time, but guess what? Now I do. Now I do. Just within the last year, I've started to see angels that I've never seen before images of Jesus coming to me that I've never seen before. And over time, since the second near-death experience, it's like my abilities get stronger and stronger. I call these almost like after effects. And if you look at people like study these after effects, well, one of mine, Aaron, was that I began to speak different languages. The first one, I was actually sitting on my toilet. I'm being graphic, but true. And I was feeling pretty down.
You're allowed to say toilet on this show. It's okay.
Thank you. So I thought if I said a prayer, it would cheer me up. So I started trying to say a prayer out loud, and instead came out these different words that I didn't understand. So I said, "Oh, stop babbling. Just pray." So I tried to pray again, and out came these words. So I made a recording on cassette tape and took it to a counselor I was seeing at the time. And she said, "I think that sounds like Hebrew." So I have a friend that's a professor at the University of Toronto. I'll take the tape to her and see what she thinks. So when I come back to her the next week, she said, "Well, she says it is Hebrew. It's ancient Hebrew." And at the time, I didn't follow up on it. But then years later, within the last few years, I decided one day just to try to speak Hebrew again. And I did, because I set my phone for Google Translate and said Hebrew. Around that time, I connected with a paranormal research scientist, Stephen Schwartz, in the States. Had many conversations over the last couple of years. He took it to one recording to a rabbi. The rabbi said it's an old-fashioned Hebrew, and then he wouldn't touch it after that because it's somebody that can do what I can do, channel different languages. In that culture is thought of as being a witch, and the rabbi and any rabbi Stephen tried to approach would not have anything to do with that. Then I sent a page of type language to another professor in the States, and he said that's modern Hebrew. So in total, I've spoken 3 different forms of Hebrew. On top of that, 83 other languages. And any languages I've tried to speak, I've been able to. But when I speak Hebrew, that's my favorite because I can get the most information. I know a great deal about Israel, present and going back centuries to the time of the Torah and before, names of towns, cities, kibbutzes that don't even exist anymore, businesses, restaurants, food, everything, as well as information about physics, advanced mathematics, human genealogy, ancient Greek playwrights, just a lot of stuff. So I've stayed connected with Stephen Schwartz. I continue to speak to him to this day. He was a creator and a pioneer of extended remote viewing, and he's worked with a number of people who are mediums over his life.
Okay, I'd like to know what you've learned from all this. Seems like these experiences are always to teach the person that has the experience. Often there's a message for other people too. What do you think is yours?
Well, my intention and my wish is to teach people there's nothing to fear in death. And all death is crossing over literally from this life, physical life, to the other side, which is non-physical life. And by the way, it feels exactly the same as this life, and every bit is physical to those on the other side. It's not like you're living in a cloud floating around unless you want to. It's a very physical feeling reality. And I want to teach people you don't have to be afraid of death. And I want to teach people to realize, I'm going to sound religious here, but the kingdom of God is within you. And to have faith, you have faith in God is the same as having you have faith in yourself. And so I want to teach people, you need to trust in yourself. You need to trust.
What would you say to somebody that's having a rough day today? Maybe lost a loved one, maybe is kind of given up on hope.
I would start by saying, look up. Don't look down. Look up. Look up to the sky instead of looking down at the ground. Look up and say, I will get through this because I always have.
That's beautiful. Thank you very much for being with me. If anybody wants to reach out to you, you said that I could put your email address in the show notes. You still cool with that? If so, I'll put them in there.
Yes, I am.
Okay. I'll do that. This has been really interesting, Lynda. I appreciate you joining me today.
Thanks, Eric.
Thanks again for listening and sharing this podcast. Don't forget to hit the follow or subscribe button and sign up for our newsletter at roundtripdeath.com. If you want to share your near-death experience, or if you have questions or comments about the show, send an email to eric@roundtripdeath.com. Until then, I wish you everything good that you're looking for in this life and the next.